Hello good people and welcome back. If you've stumbled or clicked on this video, you might be wondering one or two things, or both. First, why is Magnus Carlsen featured in a Improve Yourself to 1000 ELO thumbnail? And two, what are these solid steps to get and break the 1000 ELO? We're going to ignore the first question because it's such a lovely thumbnail, but in all seriousness, if you'd like to break the 1000 ELO chess.com barrier in Rapid and remotely in Blitz, well, you've come to the right place. I'm here to give you 3 solid tips to improve and weaponize your current skill set so you can easily break that barrier, stay there, and go beyond. Let's hit it! So step 1, tactics. Now let's be honest with ourselves. 1000 ELO games and below 1000 are chaotic. I don't have to tell you that if you've seen 1 or 2 or 3 or many more episodes of your local Guess the ELO from the legendary Levi Rosman's Gotham Chess. Actually, that's him. Sometimes when you watch these games, you can see the intention behind the moves. They're not very strong, or they could be pretty good. And then after that, it can look like complete chaotic nonsense. Now, if you're under 1000 ELO at chess.com Rapid, I know the name of the website, then your trump card at this point is having better tactics than your would-be opponents. In fact, Hikaru Nakamura at one point said that tactical training is very important up to 2200. You have to keep in mind positional chess, strategy, middle game ideas, openings, but first you have to be tactically sharp and astute. In 1000 ELO games, you need to organize the chaos in your head. Chess is all about a mental game. It is a mental game. You need to see the patterns, you need to internalize, and you need to spot them when they're presented or by your opponent as a mistake, traps, whatnot. Perhaps it's safe to say at this point, learning middle game strategy and opening theory, at least very memory-heavy ones, have little to no meaning if you, dear viewer, keep falling for the same fork, the same skewer, the same back rank checkmate, etc., etc. And hence, pattern recognition is the key, and retrieval of forcing moves in these positions is paramount. Hence, did I say hence before? Anyways, I'll say it again. I would recommend doing 25 tactical puzzles a day. And I don't mean just plowing through Puzzle Rush. I mean also organizing, categorizing the patterns of either, say, checkmates, dovetail mates, back rank issues, forks, skewers, internalize them in certain categories in your head, and also play them out fast and quick, and then increase the number of repetitions until you can do them in your sleep. Just like Beth Harmon. Actually, no, don't do that. Anyways, without further ado, let's look at some simple tactics so I can illustrate what I mean. And feel free to solve them if you'd like. Here's tactic number 1. Oh wow, look at this. It's almost reciprocal. Equal amount of pawns. This is super simple. Super simple until you fall for it, of course. Now, it matters here whose move it is, because each of the kings have in their diagonal squares a rook in front of them, which is supported by the bishop, and hence, you guys probably figured it out. If it's white to move, you simply remove the defender, rook to f6 with a check. This is unprotected, and the next move you're up a solid piece, and same thing goes. That's one level of the lowest level of tactics, and it would be sad to fall for that, but it does happen, even perhaps in higher level games. Just ask Kramnik. He fell for a 1-move checkmate at one point. Here's another one. It's white to move and win. Again, only supported by the knight, so remove the defender with check. Either king takes on f5 or pawn takes on f5, and whatever it is you retrieve with, you have a passer, you have a knight. Yeah, easy tactics, right? Well, let's ramp it up slightly, but ever so slightly. In this position, it's white to play and win. With the more pieces in the board, you need a better board vision. But enough of me drawing lines like Hikaru. You kind of need to visualize what you need to do. Here, it's white to play and win. And the first thing you'll notice is that there is a lovely battery on the dark square diagonal. But, of course, if you do this, and you wonder why the timer hasn't run out and announced why you won, it's because you didn't. So, if queen to g7 is not the winning move, we need to think one step further and remove the defender yet again. What is the defender? It's knight on e7. That's so easy, bro, right? You can spot it in your games, and of course, if you retrieve that, that's a checkmate. That's when the timer runs and you celebrate your victory. But then you need to see these patterns in more complicated scenarios. Here it's black to play and win. And there's no battery. There's no one mover pot shot tactics. It's a forced win for black. Actually, little tip, it's a forced checkmate. And if you can spot this at below 1000 elo level, I can kind of tell that you're tactically astute. But the idea is, and of course, there is a powerful knight there on e4. There are ideas in the open, semi-open file right now, and I'll just solve it for you. Or if you want, I'll pause it, or you pause it. I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Black wins by sacrificing the rook. You have to take. Notice how the king only has this exit square and this exit square, and we're about to deprive them with that exit square with knight to d2. You cannot go to this file, have to move back, and hence the checkmate is complete. I'm sorry I didn't yell out, sacrifice the queen. But anyways, I could go into more tactical complexities, but these are the things I believe you need to see at 1000 elo level. So step 2, calculation. You have to calculate and develop the habit of calculating. But wait, Mr. Level Up Chess isn't asking me to train my tactical abilities and then asking me to make the habit of calculation just a little bit redundant because it's kind of one and the same. Well, that's an excellent question, young Padawan. Almost all aspects of chess, tactics, strategy, endgame, and pushing through or perusing through an unfamiliar opening line will require you to calculate if you want to succeed at least. If you'd like to crack 1000 ELO, if you want to stay there, you want to go beyond, all I ask you to do is to get into the habit of calculation. More often than not, we only calculate ideas, and those ideas are our ideas on the side of the board, but not so much our opponent's ideas. Our opponent's trying to, squeeze us, crush us, get us into a terrible zugzwang, and we need to see both through our ideas and theirs, and how they interact. You want to establish consequential thinking by thinking out your ideas and thinking out your opponent's ideas in the art of attack and defense. This is called solid chess. And one useful tip I'd like to say is that if you want to play like Misha Tal, Mikhail Tal, or Garry Kasparov, you want to throw a sacrifice out there, especially an OTB or a long form kind of time control in chess.com, or Lichess. I'm actually a Lichess player. I'm using Lichess interface right now. I advise you to only do that if you can see the end of the variation as clearly as possible, because it's a bit of a punishment to your psyche when you don't see the last couple variations. And yeah, you threw that rook in there, sacrifice the queen, and now you Boda's gambited it. Just horrible. Anyways, so don't do that. Calculate. And if you can't calculate past a certain point, maybe don't choose that sharp and deadly variation. So first kind of position in here, and you might be wondering, that looks really familiar. Well, it's the black version of when the queen was here on c3 and we removed the defender there on e8. Here's a calculation that if it was black to move and you could see it, you need to defend your king side here as white. Let me explain what I mean. This was that position where you checkmated him after, or her, rook to e8 and then removal and then checkmate. Now we're back here, and imagine you're looking into the position. You didn't see this, which is a tactical error or oversight, but you have to see that if it was black's turn to move, you should also be able to calculate for your opponent, because in this position, black actually has a crazy counter move. It's knight to h3. And the thing is, if you go here on h1 after removal, takes, that is a checkmate. And the opponent doesn't necessarily need to, well, here. If the opponent decides to take here, the thing is, your idea is one step behind. You have to defend against this checkmate. And because upon an f2 is there, you have a crazy battery here. You have to sacrifice loads of material, including the rook. So you kind of have to see that pattern there to disrupt that, because knight to e3 is inadequate and lead you to checkmate. So I can speak English. Calculate for yourself and calculate for your opponents. And yet another example of calculating for your opponent, counter calculation, is the reverse side, spoiler alert, of this puzzle that I showed you guys. If you couldn't find queen takes on f1, you have to look into the position where, I don't know how to shut down the lines, where the white pieces, or rather the white bishop snipes all the way to g1. There's a knight here. There's a queen ideas there. So if it was white's turn to move, you know, knight to g6, sacrificing the knight, leads to a checkmate. And if we go back to that position, it's important to look that if you can't find the checkmate, at least acknowledge that your opponent is out there to snipe you as well. And perhaps it's not such a worst move to just play h6. And if you run that, at least you don't get checkmated with the move knight to g6, right? And step number 3, and I hate to break it to you, you have to play with slower time controls. I'll say it again, slowly. You gotta play with slower time controls. At baseline, 15 minutes, 15 minutos. Ideally, 20 to 30 minutes. Because when you join an actual FIDE, official FIDE tournament, that's OTB, more often than not, if you want a standard rating point, but if we're talking chess.com here, it'll be an hour's game. Because yes, blitz games are fun. Yes, 1-minute bullet games are short bursts of adrenaline. And Hikaru and Magnus can do it. Why shouldn't I? I'll say with no surprise that these grandmasters, super grandmasters, and Hikaru and Magnus are better than their peers. They've invested thousands upon thousands of hours of intentful learning, strong positions, positions over positions that have been ingrained in their mental circuitry. You know, if you've read performance psychology, you need at least 10,000 hours to be to master something. And with slower time controls, you can kind of see your intentions well. You can see the patterns much better, and you don't win with cheap tactics. It also teaches you to slow down to look at and calculate what I've been mentioning in terms of look before you leap, both for your kind of ideas and your opponent's ideas. And you're not rushing because there's no risk, unless, of course, you take like 5 minutes per move. There's not really a risk of flagging as opposed to a 3-minute game. Anyways, those are my tips, ladies and gents. 3 tips and 3 steps to conquer and break the 1000 ELO at chess.com standard control. And you'll notice the better you are at standard, you kind of start to intuit things and blitz, and things will start to make sense in shorter time frames, and you'll find that it almost kind of flows. It pours down to the other time controls. Maybe not lightning and bullet, because that's a different beast. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy this. More chess improvement tips in the future, and more grandmaster analyses, and of course myself playing. I'm also actively studying, not to be titled yet, but just to improve in general. I'll catch you guys later. Double peace.